Oh, are we on? Are we on? Are we on? Let's hear it. Let's see if we're on. Quite exciting this. I can hear that music again. And hello, my baby gorillas. If we're back on business. Oh, can you all hear me? What's going on? Oh, we are. Oh, there's that handsome guy again. So, here we go. That music keeps following me. I don't know what it is. Somebody could tell me. Or not, as the case may be, or not a sex crime. Let me just get your comments up, troops, and then we will be cracking on with this. So here we go. You're on. Hey, up, lad. Hi, guys. How are we? Good to see you all. Good to see you all. Let's see what's happening in the fake sex crime industry. Here we go. Alex Salmond blasts farcical Hollywood inquiry decision not to publish his submission on Nicola Sturgeon's fake orchestration of false sexual allegations against the former First Minister. And it's our old pal Paul Hutchins, who I think was at the David Irvin, because I wasn't there at the David Irvin event. I don't know what he was doing there. I don't know if he's a secret Nazi, but I think he was actually at the David Irvin event. I don't know what he was doing there. Whereas I wasn't, that he managed to write an article on me about me not being at a Holocaust deniers event, although he was there. It's weird that. Alex Salmond blast farcical. That now we've already established that this is potentially, this committee is set up to fail, and we want the Scottish public demand a full public inquiry because it covers too many groups. So we want a full independent public inquiry into the alleged orchestration of fake sexual allegations against the former First Minister by the current alleged lesbian, intersectional feminist Marxist Nicola Sturgeon, allegedly. It's our old pal Paul Hutchins. I don't know if it must be the Daily Rubbish, Daily Record. I mean, here we go. Alex Salmond has blasted the Holyrood inquiry for refusing to publish the document he provided in which he alleges Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament. And there's already been other commentators who have said that the parliamentary committee has been set up to fail, and that is why we require a full public inquiry into this whole disgusting samash. Let's see what our pal. I'm trying to do my best for you, Paul, even though you're nasty to me. Trying to do your best, even though you were at the David Irvin event. I don't know what you were doing there. Holocaust denier that it was. I wouldn't attend that sort of thing. So, a spokesman for the former First Minister said it was a farcical decision and an extraordinary development. Oh my goodness, let me say that again. I might not have emphasised it enough. A spokeswoman for the First Minister, wee nippy, said it was a farcical decision and an extraordinary development that she probably set up as well. She seems to have her fingers in every dike just now because all the water seems to be coming through all the holes. The Vietnam group, it's all coming out, isn't it? She added that Salmond will consult advisors on what to do now. What I would suggest Alex Salmond does is give it to me and we, Georgie Podgy Galloway, and we will actually broadcast it from the heavens on our fantastic to our fantastic groups so that they can make up their mind and allow it to the nation and just bypass the committee that looks like it's trying to stifle the public knowing what the former First Minister and what happened to the former First Minister. So just give it to us, me and Georgie Porgy, and we will actually broadcast what it sends in your summation of what's actually happened to you and how the First Minister has misled Parliament. Not only just misleading Parliament, she, by her persecuting Alex Salmond, by her going against the legal advice from the Lord, the Dean of the Faculty of Advocates, that she has broken the ministerial code because you're not meant to do that. That's part of the ministerial code. So she's broken it there. She might have misled Parliament. She's probably got two or three things that are resigning issues that she should, and if enough pressure is put, will have to resign on. She added that Salmond will consult advisors on what to do now. I told you Alex should give it to me and Georgie Porgy, and me and Georgie will actually release the what Alex is actually putting out. She added that the decision was made even though the contents of the Salmond summation has been widely reported in the media. I've not seen it. Let me just check if we can get it up. Full text Alex submission to the Hamilton inquiry. This is Alex Hamilton inquiry. All right, okay. Let's see. Just let me go away. Right, so how will we read that in a minute? Looks a riveting read. Let's have these. Oh my goodness. Let's go back to pal Paul Hutchison's, who was at the David Irvin event. Don't know what he was doing there. The decision was made even though the contents of the Salmond submission had been widely reported in the media. Oh my goodness. He is in line to give evidence to the inquiry next week, which is the 9th of February. But the row may cast doubt on his appearance. Why would you go if your statement's not been given to the populace or broadcast to the populace? Another cover up by wee Nippy. The inquiry is examining the Scottish Government's unlawful investigations into sexual misconduct complaints against Salmond. The fiasco destroyed the friendship. I guess if you're lying or trying to put somebody else in jail, it does ruin a friendship, doesn't it? It's making false sexual allegations, orchestrating them. That would ruin my friendship with anybody, wouldn't it? The fiasco destroyed the friendship between Sturgeon and Salmond, started the fish wars, whose allies believe he was targeted by an orchestrated fake sexual conspiracy by the government, the civil servants, the 9 potential alleged victims, police involvement, and Crown Office involvement, and other SNP government figures in the Vietnam group. James Hamilton, an ex-director of public prosecutions in Ireland, is heading a separate investigation into whether Sturgeon broke her own ministerial code, which she definitely did. Can you imagine writing a code and then breaking it? I mean, that's ballsy, to say the least. Heaven forbid a straight male ever heads the SNP again, huh? Yes, exactly. Straight whitemail, mate. They seem to have a real bee in their bonnet, these sort of intersectional lesbian feminists with Islamofascists. I mean, it's just incredible. Talk about the unholy alliance of two of the largest mass murdering political ideologies the world has ever known. This relates to the meeting Sturgeon had with Salmond in the middle of her government's investigation. Don't forget that one of the civil servants was meeting with, I think it was Liz Lloyd, I think there was meeting with two of the victims or speaking to two of the victims when she shouldn't have been doing that. Or it was one of the head of the civil servants that was actually contacting two of the alleged victims on a regular basis and compromising the investigation. Again, that's another thing. So that's another thing that she has that they've done to actually instigate it, as well as putting pressure on the alleged victims, as well as her husband trying to actually get other people to come forward with other allegations who refused to do it down in England, which is probably good because that person may not be up for perjury, but they are implicated in this and need to be in front of the public inquiry so that we can investigate all of this. Salmond's legal team, as part of his written evidence shared with the committee, his submission to the Hamilton probe. I don't know who Hamilton is probing, but he's not probing hard enough. In the document, Salmond accused his one-time protege, who knifed him in the back like Brutus, like Salmond was Caesar, and wee Nippy with a whole bunch of other individuals knifing her, the guy that taught her in the back. Shows you what type of individual wee Nippy is, doesn't it? What a horrible wee creature. Uh, Breaches of the ministerial code and of misleading Parliament. Multiple breaches of the ministerial code of conduct and the civil servants. That's why we have to investigate the civil servants as well as whoever was involved in the WhatsApp group, the Vietnam. And again, the committee has covered that up as well. So we don't know what it is. So that's why we need a public inquiry, because obviously Alex Salmond's discussion with the inquiries being held back, information to the inquiries being held back. So all of this has been held back. So we need to get to the bottom of this. This is not acceptable. It's certainly not in the public interest. It seems like they're covering up by a small group of parliamentarians. However, asked if the committee will publish Salmond's evidence in relation to the Hamilton probe, a Scottish parliamentary spokesperson said, "No, the committee will not be public. Oh, sorry, the committee won't be publishing that. Why? That's the first question. Paul Hutchins should be asking why. Mr. Salmond has been made aware of that. It's the public that you need to make aware of that. It's the public that require answers. You are responsible to the public, not even to each other." The spokesperson added all material published by the committee is done so in line with its statement on handling of information. Yeah, this is a public thing. This is the public require this. That's why we need a public inquiry rather than a parliamentary inquiry that makes it clear that the committee must comply with relevant court orders as well as its obligations under the GDPR. So nobody knows what that is. I'm sure we Google it. Oh my god. Just write English. Compliance use of cookies. Something like that. Guide to the UK General Data Protection Regulation. And European Convention on Human Rights. well, I would suggest, I don't know where the human rights comes in if you are making false sexual allegations against a former First Minister. I don't know where the human rights allegations come in there. Does she not have any human rights? Is that a human right not to be falsely accused of sexual impropriety? A spokeswoman for Mr. Salmond said, "This is quite extraordinary development. It would be one thing to remove a sentence or, sorry, this is quite an extraordinary development. It would be one thing to remove a sentence or so, but to suppress the whole submission is simply farcical. It means that it can't even be considered for inclusion in the committee's reports." I mean, how disgusting is that? We had already discussed that this committee has been set up to fail, and that's why we demand a public inquiry. In one letter, the convener seems to have wiped out the entire strand of her own committee's inquiry into the ministerial code and dispatched the submission into a black hole. So they're obviously trying to cover up. The Irish, Mr. Hamilton, may be compromised like Lord Advocate James Wolfe, and they could all be just looking after each other. And Nicola Sturgeon is not going to be held to account for her lies, for her lying, trying to set up Alex Salmond. She's not going to be held accountable, allegedly. They are hiding behind Data Protection Act. That's right, buddy. That's exactly what they're hiding behind. Alex will consult with his advisors tomorrow afternoon and give the details to the Guerilla TV channel so we can release it to everybody else, so that we know that the information is going out to the public and not being blackholed by the committee or the parliamentarians as to where this leaves his evidence and what to do now. What to do now is that we require a public inquiry. SNP and transparency. I've got nothing to hide. Nothing, not a thing. No, not Alex Salmond's testimony. Not the legal advice. Not my husband's perjury. Not the Vietnam group WhatsApp chat. Nothing to hide. Nothing to see here. Nothing. Look over there. The Scottish Parliament spokesperson said the committee has always been clear that we are going to set this committee up to fail and let me nippy off the hook. That the Parliament can't publish any information which does not comply with the legal obligations placed upon it. So if we can cover it up, we will do our damn hardest to do it, because it's not in the plebeians' interest to actually find out the truth. If we can push it under the table, we're going to do that. This includes court orders for the criminal trial. I want to see the court orders now, and restrictions on citing confidential evidence. Confidential evidence. What sort of evidence is that? Is that the confidential type? Is that the ones that might be an orchestration for the judicial review and the criminal trial? I want to see that. What's in the criminal trial? I want to see it all. I want it all out on a public inquiry, which I think I should head, because I know I'll get to the bottom of it. The committee's work must be open and transparent. Oh dear, you must think we're all stupid. Yeah, we're going to be completely transparent and we're going to withhold information. That's how transparent. We're going to do the opposite of transparency, but tell everybody we're going to be transparent. Oh, sure. The committee work must be open and transparent to the public, and its evidence must be available to the public unless it's Alex Salmond putting the knife back into wee nippy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Mr. Murrell. Hello, Mr. Murrell. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Always nice. Let's see what they've got here, shall we? Oh, here we go. Tories threaten vote on misleading Parliament. Too wee nippy if Murrell fails to appear. This was UK News published on the 2nd of February, the year of our Lord 2021. The Scottish Conservatives are demanding that Mr Murrell return to give evidence to a Scottish Parliamentary committee. There he is there, happy chap. The Scottish Conservatives said that they will trigger a vote on whether Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament if the SNP Chief Executive Peter Murrell does not reappear at the Holyrood Committee. Ooh, it's getting spicy. The Tories are demanding that Mr Murrell return to give evidence at the Scottish Parliament Committee investigation the handling of harassment complaints made against former First Minister Alex Salmond. He last appeared at the committee in December, but opposition parties have since raised questions about the evidence he gave. On Tuesday, the Tories said that they would submit a motion for party business that Ms. Sturgeon, I don't know why she never took his name, misled the Parliament when she promised the SNP would cooperate fully with the inquiry. So, the, the chief executive works for her. The chief executive, so her husband works for Mrs. Sturgeon, the new, or Mrs. Murrell, should we say. We'll just call her Mrs. Murrell from now on. So, Mr. Murrell is the cook, and Mrs. Murrell is the cooker. So let's see that. I think she's cooking that much. She's potentially seeing a French journalist. Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross said if the SNP chief executive won't even show up, that promise had clearly been broken. Sorry, let me go that again. Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross, if the SNP chief executive won't even show up, that promise has clearly been broken, and she, Miss Sturgeon, has misled the Scottish Parliament as being transparent and open. Oh, we get more. Oh, fantastic. It's quite a long one. This Nicola Sturgeon can change this. It's her party. The chief executive works for her and is her husband. She should demand he at least shows up. We know why he doesn't want to appear. Peter Murrell is running scared of claims that he perjured himself, and the SNP cannot dodge scrutiny forever. Either the SNP chief executive faces the inquiry or the SNP leader apologises for misleading Parliament. Which I would think if she was misleading Parliament, that was her breaking the ministerial code, which is quite clever by Mr. Ross. Last week, the Crown Office confirmed that they handed over material to the committee following a request from its members. So they had to force the Crown Office. Twice they asked the Crown Office and were refused. They had to force the Crown Office to hand over the material. MSPs on the committee were asked to consider whether there is a public interest in releasing the documents. Both Ms. Sturgeon and Mr. Salmond, the fish wars, are expected to give evidence to the committee in the next 2 weeks. Mr. Murrell, who is the First Minister's husband, appeared in person before the committee in December and later wrote to the committee seeking to clarify aspects of the evidence he gave. Oh, where did that go? Oh, here we go. Oh, there we are there. There we go there. Now Sturgeon's husband may be forced to attend the probe. Oh. So they're trying a few different ways to get Mr. Murrell to attend. Let's have a wee look what this says. After refusal following legal advice. So there's big problems here. Damn right they shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know what that's in context. Husband and wife shouldn't have such powerful positions in the same political party. Yes, well, So Nicola Sturgeon's husband could be forced to face Alex Salmond inquiry again, but don't forget the inquiry set up to fail. We want a public inquiry. Peter Murrell has so far rejected the request from the MSPs to reappear after taking legal advice on the issue. That's pretty bad, isn't it? We're open and transparent. Here we go. Oh, how did they get it down? Oh, it's one of those. Peter Murrell has so far rejected any request from the SNPs. Don't forget they're going to have a vote potentially on Nicola Sturgeon misleading Parliament. So again, more pressure. To reappear after taking legal advice on the issue, SNP Chief Executive was criticised following his first appearance before the Holyrood Committee in December. Let's just make this slightly bigger. How big can we get it? Urged the investigation whether Murrell perjured himself after evidence he gave under oath seemed to contradict statements he and his wife had provided. The Holyrood inquiry is looking into the Scottish Government's botched handling of two harassment complaints made against Mr. Now, as far as I'm aware, there was 9, 10 complainants, and all of these complainants were thrown out by women in the actual jury, predominantly women in the jury, against Mr. Salmond in 2018. A judicial review found that the investigation had been unlawful and conspired by a bunch of women and men as well, in the Scottish Government, the Crown, the Civil Service, the accusers, and both the police and the Crown Office are involved as well. And Mr. Salmond was awarded more than £500,000 in legal fees. Well, it's not him that's been awarded, it's some lawyer that's been awarded that amount of money, which is an incredible amount of money for I don't know what. Mr. Murrell evidence notes have been hidden in Mrs. Murrell's knickers. He told the committee that he had no chance of retrieving them, as he had never been been there before. They could get the French journalist, the French female journalist, to retrieve them then, allegedly. Mr. Murrell has now been recalled to explain conflicting evidence he has given about the existence of texts and the Vietnam WhatsApp messages relating to Mr. Salmond, and which is also allegedly getting covered up by the committee as well. The Vietnam group text messages. Yesterday, the committee member Murdo Fraser, a Tory MSP, said the committee can use Section 23 of the Scotland Act powers to compel a witness to attend. Get in here. Watch this space. So they've now got a potential allegations of misleading Parliament by Mrs. Salmond and Mrs. Sturgeon. Miss Sturgeon, Mrs. Murrell, they now can compel the witness to reattend. Oh, it's getting very sexy. Only days before Mr. Murrell appeared before the Holyrood inquiry on the 8th of December, a series of text messages he sent regarding the ex-SNP leader were leaked. They were sent following Mr. Salmond's first court appearance and appeared to show Mr. Murrell suggesting it was a good time to be pressurising the police. That's really bad. See that sentence there? That is incredibly bad. He actually said from a position of power and influence that the police should be being pressurised to make false sexual allegations against the former First Minister. MSPs quizzed him over the meaning of a message. I think we all know. Does anybody want to tell me in the chat? Do we all know what it was a good time to pressurise the police means in the greater context of this investigation? I think we all know. Let me know what you think it meant in the chat. Brick wall transparency. I'm going to use that in future. Brick wall transparency. Yeah, that's the new sturgeon transparency. So here we go. He was then asked whether any messages existed, which he denied. No messages, nothing to see here. We don't have any messages. I don't know what you're talking about. Not in any WhatsApp group. He also denied 5 years in jail for perjury, by the way, just so you know. They're trying to put Craig Murray in jail for 2 years for fake allegations of perjury and jigsawing. And there was 3 charges. They're just nonsense anyway. I'll do one specifically on Mr. Murray and what he said as well. He also denied having the messaging app WhatsApp, but later recanted that evidence, saying yes, it was in the Vietnam group and did say to the civil servants that we should be putting pressure on the police to make up false sexual allegations in London. Now, as far as I can remember, and this is off the top of my head, and I've got a very bad memory, guys, because of dyslexia and ADD. But as far as I can remember, the London episode where the person did not come forward was actually released to the papers. It was actually released to the papers, even though there was no complaining. So we can see where that's come from, can't we? If someone tried to fit me up for multiple sexual charges, I would personally kick them up and down the street on a daily basis. Just saying. Yes, well, trust me. I'll tell you, if you look about the thing that happened to me at Strathclyde Uni, you'll be able to see how they're doing this. It's not just to Alex Salmond. I think there is other people who are orchestrating false sexual allegations and being allowed to get away with it. We need standalone charges for people who are getting charged with false sexual allegations, and people need to go to jail if they're making false sexual allegations, including people who are orchestrating it as well. That is not in the statute books just now, but that requires to be put in the statute books. Once we get rid of the people in the Scottish Parliament, then we'll get some decent politicians in where we can have fairness. I see that I'll go over the Islamofascist Humza Useless later on with his disgusting hate speech bills. There was hundreds of LGBTQ people about to leave the Scottish National Party because of Humza Useless hate speech bills. Oh my goodness! And because obviously what happened with Joanna Cherry, who's a man-hating lesbian. Now, I don't say that light-heartedly. I don't think like Ruth Davidson or Kezia Dugdale are men-hating lesbians, but I think Joanna Cherry's a man-hating lesbian. She's a real nasty, intersectional, feminist, Marxist lesbian. She's really a man-hater, I think. And I don't use that lightly. I don't castigate people without actually, unless it's been true. I wouldn't just say somebody's a racist or somebody's a fascist or somebody's a communist if it wasn't actually on the money. I wouldn't just try and besmirch them for the sake of besmirching them. I'm not Alexander Ocasio-Smollett. What's she on about? I was in the room by myself, and there was nobody outside, but yeah, there was a whole group of people trying to attack me. What? She's mental. Just makes up stuff. Why is nobody held up to accountability? Can you just openly lie in Congress? Can you just make things up? She looks like she's a sociopath, just making up all these lies. Oh yeah, I was down at the cages, standing in front of a parking lot for the detention centres, and she's already caused two people her provocative words have already caused 2 people to commit terrorist attacks in the United States, at least. So, I mean, really, why is nobody holding her to account? Mr. Murrell has failed to meet a series of deadlines to attend the Scottish Parliament. the legal advice is going, don't go, 5 years in jail. Meanwhile, the committee yesterday said it would not publish messages shared between the women. Yeah, they already got their names retracted. Now the evidence, so the public can see whether or not they're lying or not, is also retracted. That's not fair and it's not just. Cherry is a sweet dom. Cherry is a sweet dom. She's very nasty. If you want to see things about Joanna Cherry, put Guerilla TV channel, Joanna Tate Cherry, and you'll be able to see the stuff that we've already covered in Jojo Cherry. The left don't get questioned. AOC have never had a debate with anyone. Yeah, she just spouts. I mean, she is possibly the dumbest person I've ever seen in politics, and that's saying something. There's some real crackers like David Lammy and Abbott. I mean, real absolute belters. But she's very beautiful, and I think she's talented as well. She's a talented actress, and she was quite a talented dancer. But she's causing major problems. She could start a war. She could actually be in a position where her life could be in danger because of her provocative way that she speaks and that she provokes people and she lies. I mean, the fact that nobody is holding her to account for all these lies, I just can't understand. Well, like Nicola Sturgeon, it seems like that if you a minority, well, I guess minority men and women, so let's not blame genders here, but a minority of men and women, they can lie with impunity. And this seems to be getting all covered up in black hole down here, isn't it, guys? The committee has unanimously agreed that the private communications within the material will not be published. So another black hole there for these materials that we don't know what's in or not. So Alex Salmond's not getting black holed, his statements getting black holed, these people's statements are getting black holed. I mean, really, these include numerous chains of private messages between different women in what we can only assume might be collusion. What we are clear are were safe spaces, a safe space, or an alternative way is a black hole, so the public can't actually find out what these people are saying or doing for confidential support. Yeah. Will they do polygraph tests then? I would like to see them all do polygraph tests. Apparently, legal academic Alistair Boddington notes that the Parliamentary Committee was given the job precisely. I covered this yesterday, but that Michael, that's what I did cover yesterday, buddy. Alistair Boddington, but yeah, you're quite right. Given the job precisely because it would have insufficient expertise or powers to investigate adequately the SNP. Not only that, but that's why we need a public inquiry. That's why I read this out. If you go back, Alistair, to yesterday's and go through it, I did cover Alistair Boddington in my previous one. And this is why I'm doing it this way because, yeah, that's correct. It's been set up to fail, and we need to actually get a public inquiry, not a parliamentary inquiry. So those are two different things. Publication and further consideration of this material is not relevant to the committee's work or necessary to fulfill its remit. We will not publish any of these messages. Oh, that's great. More cover up. We will not be doing anything that may cause further unnecessary distress to any woman who may or may not be lying, who's got the names retracted. We don't know if this has been orchestrated, if they've got a connection directly with Nicola Sturgeon. We don't know what they've said, so we don't know any of it. So this is another black holing by the committee. We will not be committing further to seek to further speculation on these messages. Oh, black hole, black hole. Rape Crisis Scotland government funded the direct contact. There's a redacted name between Nicola Sturgeon, Rape Crisis Scotland, and the redacted name, which Rape Crisis Scotland is a not-for-profit organisation that's got a direct monetary link to the First Minister. the messages were requested. Rape Crisis said it was deeply concerned the messages were requested in the first place. Yeah, as I said, it's a government quasi governmental body. The charity published a statement on behalf of the women whose messages were handed over, saying we are deeply disappointed that the committee saw fit to request messages between people identified by the police and the Crown as victims of sexual harassment. So basically, what they're wanting is no scrutiny. Charity published a statement on behalf of the women whose messages were handed over, saying, we are deeply disappointed that the committee saw fit to request messages between people who were civil servants and connected to the government by the police and the Crown Office as victims of sexual harassment. So those identities are protected by court order. Members of the committee knew vulnerable witnesses were involved. I was in the courtroom, and none of these, bar two maybe, none of these um, situations seemed to be very serious, to be brutally honest, not to be put even in the court. Witnesses were involved when they made the request. We have also uh, deeply disturbed that the Crown has felt it appropriate to break the trust we place in it. We feel this unnecessary act will have done serious damage to progress made over the past few years on sexual assault cases. Obviously, Nicola Sturgeon being an alleged lesbian, she's only interested in one side of the story. She's not interested in protecting men. So that just like she's a misandrist, I think, as well, to be brutally honest. And not only that, she's brought in the hate speech bill, which only affects white heterosexual men. So that's basically what the situation is there with Hamza Useless, the Islamofascist, which so much of the hate speech bill would apply to Islam, it's unbelievable. So I don't know if they're getting an exemption, bringing in backdoor blasphemy laws. What the Crown provided are personal communications between friends who support each other in traumatic times. I think some of them were touching somebody's knee. That must have been very traumatic. Not as traumatic as the Muslim rape gangs that were covered up by the police in Glasgow, or just now with alleged criminal gangs in Glasgow as well, who people are coming forward to actually denouncing Nicola Sturgeon's constituency. A spokeswoman for the Crown Office and the Procurator Fiscal said, we've taken serious our responsibilities towards victims and witnesses, and we're going to make a big, huge cover up so that nobody knows that this was an orchestrated attempt. In order to protect public confidence and trust, the COPFS processes the information it holds carefully, thoughtfully, and lawfully. COPFS was compiled to provide certain information to comply with the statutory notice, but asked the committee to carefully consider if it would be appropriate and in the public interest to publish the material provided. Yes, it would. There's your answer there. Yes, and we want to see it. This is the Herald, written by Neil Mackey or Mackay. SNP is in. Oh, there. SNP is in hell as and has nobody to blame but themselves. And that was done 17 hours ago in the Herald. There's wee Nippy there, looking happy. Nicola Sturgeon attends a session at the Scottish Parliament where she delivers an update on the COVID-19 pandemic, which she's also failing in as usual. Just a litany of failures her administration is. And if any of you know what her big thing that over the 7 years she's been in power has been, what's her big idea, what's her big contribution, to Scottish politics, let me know. I think it might be this trans rights. And as a heterosexual man, I would see any interaction, sexual interaction, as rape or sexual assault by a gay man who's in a dress or has got his penis cut off. That to me, for me as a heterosexual man, is rape or sexual assault right there. So that has to be taken into consideration, and there has to be laws to protect me as well. It's not just all about wee Nippy, which just like AOC, wee Nippy just thinks the world revolves around her. I spoke to a prominent elected, and a lot of the lesbian feminists, like the intersectional lesbian Marxist feminists who've got penisophobia, don't want like men in their spaces because they've got a hatred for men, or not hatred, but certainly a non-attraction to men. So they don't like men's bodies or anything like that as well. Although I'm not sure he would like to see Joanna Cherry's body, mind you. But the fact is that they've got so Joanna Cherry is a representative of that FEMA Marxist third way men hating well, type of woman, and that's why she's very anti men coming into her safe space. Whereas Wee Nippy wants men to come into women's bathrooms for whatever reason. Her biggest achievement was getting all the media behind her New World Order puppet, all of them. Yeah, well, you're not wrong in that. I spoke to a prominent elected MSP member the other day. Oh, I'm sure that was riveting. They were distraught at the state of their party, the civil war, the fish wars, the hate, the threats. Jojo Cherry was threatened, which I disavow right from the start. I don't think, even though I dislike her, I can handle Jojo Cherry. Joanna Cherry is actually a very intelligent woman. I don't discredit her for her intellect. I think she's very, very clever. And I don't want anybody to threaten her or say anything bad, but even though she's clever and she knows she's in the ring when she talks to me, I can out debate her. If you look at the things about Joanna Cherry on the Guerilla TV channel, there's a couple of things you'll be able to see how I managed to get under her skin, even though she's a QC. I wondered how much of it orchestrated by plants throughout the branches and with the sole purpose to cause disruption and division. No, 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 no. This is all to do with Nicola Sturgeon. This is just because of Nicola Sturgeon and what she believes. It's nothing to do with plants or climbing ivy or anything else. This is because of Nicola Sturgeon and the fact that she's past her sell-by date. Speaking to friends around the country, there's too much of it happening in very similar ways for it to be purely coincidental. The fish wars, maybe it's the intersectional feminist lesbian Marxist types versus the more patriotic Alex Salmond types, but in the left as well. McCaskill and Joanna Cherry are quite left wing as well, but I don't think they're the intersectional anti-white racist left that obviously Humza useless and the alleged lesbian Nicola Sturgeon is. Oh, look at this, guys. Here we go. Alex Salmond probe queries Murrell over WhatsApp Vietnam WhatsApp group. Oh, there's a happy couple. Oh, look at those two. Look very happy, don't they? Alex Salmond probe his queries for Peter Murrell over Vietnam WhatsApp group. This was on the 31st, 2021. Now, don't forget, let's just recap here. Murrell said he only sent this message and there was no other text message or any other involvement. And now they've got the Vietnam WhatsApp group dynamite that's going to potentially put Mr. Murrell up on a perjury charge. Pressure is mounting on Nicola Sturgeon's husband, SNP Chief Executive Peter Murrell. Now, what might happen is Nicola Sturgeon might stand down to prevent her husband going to jail. So that might be the trade-off. Peter Murrell will not face trial, and Nicola Sturgeon will step down because she's broken the ministerial code, and it'll be a dishonouring for her to actually step down. That'll prevent her husband going to jail for perjury, because he's obviously perjured himself. Don't forget, Nicola Sturgeon couldn't remember meeting Alex Salmond uh, before in March, before the April meeting where she actually said that was the first meeting. So she lied there. She's also prosecuted because of the legal advice saying not to take forward the trial. She's also gone ahead with the trial as well. So there's multiple aspects here of her lying to the Parliament, but also some of these might be criminal, because if she's orchestrated this false sexual allegation smears against Alex Salmond, then that she should be going to jail for that. Club of Rome controlled them all. Yes, that's correct. That's it. Of course it did. And the Tories signing up for the Barcelona process, the Union of the Mediterranean, the UN Compact in Marrakesh, where everybody's calling people here racist and being derogatory towards them. These are the people who are coming in here. I just saw something else. Britain is racist. Two black ladies, I think it was, who were standing with this sign. And that's the future. This black guy with a black vicar with a LGBT scarf saying that he didn't support the guy that called him a white nationalist. Support the guy, the older gentleman just died 100, and we raised millions of pounds for the constituency. I mean, these are just anti-white racists. These are just token things that have been said, and they're anti-white and racist. And that's the people that these globalist shills who are in our Scottish Parliament are allowing in through mass immigration, who are burning down barracks and doing all sorts of things. Not being deported if they're illegal immigrants because they've just walked into the country, even if they fail the asylum test. So, I mean, we have de facto an open immigration policy where we're actually getting it ethically replaced. Pressure is mounting on Nicola Sturgeon. What's this? This is the Times, and this was written by John Boothman. And this was Sunday, January the 31st, 2021. Pressure is mounting on Nicola Sturgeon's husband, SNP Chief Executive Peter Murrell, to return before the Alex Salmond inquiry next week. It follows claims by the SNP, Kenny McCaskill, in an interview last week that senior party figures used a secret WhatsApp group chat codenamed Vietnam to plot against Alex Salmond. McCaskill alleged that the message between the group discussed putting pressure on one of the former First Minister's accusers to provide evidence. Now that to me is orchestration right there, including what Murrell has said as well at his criminal trial last year after she expressed reluctance to do so. Don't forget, Murrell, there was no victim down in London that was going to come forward, and they had to pressurise that victim as well. Orchestration. Pending legal advice for lying to the Parliament, Murrell delayed answering a request to appear again before the Holyrood inquiry. Don't forget, the civil servants were paid somebody was paid £55,000 to coach the civil servants into what they've had to say to this committee. And that's why we need a public committee rather than a parliamentary committee. Murrell has delayed answering a request to appear again before the Holyrood Committee investigating the Scottish Government's botched handling of complaints against Salmond. The committee asked him 2 weeks ago. There's the Daily Record again. Oh, it's our old Paul Hutchins, who was at the David Irvine event who was a Nazi Holocaust denier. I wonder what he was doing there. I wonder if he's a bit of a Nazi. Paul Hutchins blast Farsko Holyrood inquiry decision not to publish his submission on Nicola Sturgeon. Submission on Nicola Sturgeon. I think we've already covered this. The decision is believed to cast doubt on whether Salmond will appear in front of the committee next week. Yeah, what's the point of turning up if you're not going to actually publish it? Oh, we're very interested to know what you think, Mr. Salmond, but we're just going to keep it to yourselves in case it casts any bad light on the First Minister. Scottish narrative party. Try and get a job at the English Football Club using white privilege. Good luck with that. Club of Rome, huh? Alex Salmond has blasted the Holyrood inquiry for refusing to publish a document he provided in which he alleges Nicola Sturgeon misled Parliament. A spokeswoman for the former First Minister said it was a farcical decision and an extraordinary development. She said that Salmond will not consult advisors on what to do now. The decision was made even though the context of Salmond. Right, I think we've already read that. So what's this one? Oh my goodness, it just comes thick and fast, doesn't it? Back to the Herald, and it's Mr. Tom Gordon, very important person, Scottish political editor. Oh my goodness, how important. Furious Salmond attacks Holyrood inquiry for not publishing his evidence. Oh, get in there, look at Alex looking furious. Look at his face. We're going to get out in the Guerilla TV channel, Alex. Just give it to us, buddy. Laugh out loud, sure it is. Come on, Alex. Look at his serious face. Can we get Alex's serious face? Look at his angry face. Let's see Alex's angry face. Look at this. Get my pal Alex. Oh, look at his angry face. Oh. Right, here we go. Alex Salmond has reacted furiously to the Holyrood inquiry into his legal fight with Nicola Sturgeon's government not publishing his most explosive allegations. Must be like diarrhea or something. The former First Minister said it was extraordinary and farcical. These are very extreme words in parliamentary terminology. That the MSPs, I'll repeat that. The former First Minister said it was extraordinary and farcical that MSPs had refused to publish a summation in which he claimed Miss Sturgeon repeatedly misled Parliament and broke her own ministerial code. One rule for one, one for another. Oh, here we go. The pressure is now starting to tell. Our old friend Paul Hutchins, who was at the David Irvine Holocaust Denier event in Glasgow. I don't know why he was there. I don't know if he's an alleged Nazi. Nicola Sturgeon's husband agrees to appear before the Alex Salmond inquiry. Oh my goodness. Mr. Pressure is coming in. Look. Oh, look at. She's got very interesting lips there, isn't she? Oh, she's got very small lips. I wonder how they kiss. Must be like fish. Mr. Murrell, the Murrells. Peter Murrell was invited after initially responding to the committee in writing. Oh, please come back, Mr. Murrell. We want to see if you perjured yourself. I'm just getting carried away there. Nicola Sturgeon's husband has agreed to appear before the MSPs on Holyrood's Alex Salmond inquiry after getting all this pressure, isn't it? After getting all this pressure, we're going to have a vote against your wife. You might be up in perjury charges. Now, Murdo Fraser might force you to come back under Section 23 of the Scotland Act. Oh, I think you're coming back and answering these questions, Mr. Murrell. Find out what's actually happening here. Peter Murrell, who is also, don't forget, it's the Parliamentary Committee has been set up to fail. That's why we need a public inquiry. Peter Murrell, who is also the SNP's chief executive, could be asked about text messages in the Vietnam group which appeared to show him urging police to pressurise. When is this? It's the 2nd December. So that's delayed. When's this? The 9th of January. Full text Alex Salmond's submission to the Hamilton inquiry. Ooh, sexy. Who's this by? Credit for credit's due. Doesn't tell you. Might be Fat Andy Neil. This is Alex Salmond's summation to the Hamilton inquiry, in which he accused First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, nothing to say here, of misleading Parliament and breaching the ministerial code. I can see this costing the Scottish electorate another $500,000 if you are not careful, Mrs. Murrell. Yeah, exactly. When we actually get the public inquiry. This is a submission to James Hamilton at his repeat request to assist. Sorry, I'll start this again. Introduction. This is a summation to James Hamilton at his repeated request to assist in his examination of possible breaches of the ministerial code by the First Minister, who said we refused to hand over the legal advice documentation, which proved that she shouldn't have gone ahead with the actual criminal charges against Alex Salmond. Again, another piece in the jigsaw that looks like it was an orchestration. I have also shared this submission with the Parliamentary Committee as it as it is relevant to Phase 4 of their inquiry into complaints handling by the civil servants, the government ministers, the special advisors, the police, the Crown Office. Oh my goodness, the list goes on. The Vietnam WhatsApp messages between myself and the First Minister were provided. Oh no, that's not the Vietnam group. The WhatsApp messages between myself and the First Minister were provided to the Parliamentary Committee by the First Minister and published by them. I think that must be the committee. Therefore, I do not include them here, save for the inclusion of the message of the 13th of July 2018 in an unredacted form referred to below, Appendix A. The terms of reference: Mr. Hamilton wrote to me on the 8th of September, 29th of October, 16th of November, 4th and the 19th of December. I replied on the 6th, the 17th of October, 23rd of November, 23rd of December. I finally agreed, under some protest, to make this submission. The reason for my concern is that the remit drawn up for Mr. Hamilton focuses on whether the First Ministers intervened in civil service process. As I have pointed out to Mr. Hamilton, I know of no provision in the Ministerial Code which makes it improper for a First Minister to so intervene. Let me read that again. The reason for my concern is that the remit drawn up for Mr. Hamilton's focuses on whether the First Minister intervened in a civil service process. As I pointed out to Mr. Hamilton, I know of no provisions in the Ministerial Code which makes it improper for the First Minister to so intervene. So basically what he's saying is that there is nothing in the Ministerial Code that Mr. Hamilton is looking at that would actually break the Ministerial Code, which has broken the Ministerial Code and so many other things. The remit for this has been another set up to fail, because this is another parliamentary committee under Mr. Hamilton, who is the Lord Provost or whatever, Lord Advocate from Ireland. And now the scope of this overview is too narrow as well. To the contrary, intervention by the First Minister is an apparently unlawful process, subsequently confirmed by the Court of Session, would not constitute a breach precisely because the First Minister is under a duty in clause 2.30 of the Ministerial Code to avoid such illegality on the part of the government she leads, thereby not bringing forward criminal charges where she knew she would lose or didn't have a case. Because that looks like she's setting them up or orchestrating. But she decided to do it anyway. Further to suggest intervention was a breach would be to ignore and contradict the express relevance of the procedure on the position of the First Minister as the leader of the party to which the former First Minister was a member in order to administer some unspecified sanction. It will accordingly be a significant surprise if any breach of the ministerial code is found when the terms of reference have been tightly drafted by the Deputy First Minister. Sweeney has drafted these so tightly that they can't actually find out where wee Nippy has broken the ministerial code to focus on aspects of the First Minister's conduct. That is not acceptable. By contrast, I have further information which suggests other related breaches of the ministerial code which should properly be investigated by Mr Hamilton, and we have to have a greater scope and a public inquiry into the whole shooting match. I have asked that he undertake the investigation. I have drawn his attention to the parliamentary assurance from the First Minister on the 29th of October 2020 that there was no restriction on Mr Hamilton preventing him from doing so. Mr Hamilton has failed to give me a clear response as to whether these related matters relevant to the ministerial code, but out with the narrow scope, the narrow scope of Mr Sweeney's bracketed investigation by Mr Hamilton into the specific remits are going to be considered. However, in the letter of the 4th of December, he did indicate that he was inclined to view that such matters could be considered and we will take into account arguments for their inclusion. It is on this basis I make this summation. I don't think I know anyone who is over the target on Scottish politics as you, always exact on how really it is. Respect, lad. Thanks very much. He has wee Nippy got away with it then. Not if we all put pressure, all cite right to our MPs and write our MPs and pressurise them to have a public inquiry. Any chance you get, write to the papers, write to the MPs, write to everybody, write to the Crown Office, write to everybody, the police, go in and say you want police complaints on the whole shooting match, go and complain to everybody that you want a public inquiry into this. Go and demonstrate outside the Parliament, do everything. Mr Hamilton, you can get the emails off their emails, your MSP's emails off the Scottish Parliament website, and you start emailing them. Mr Hamilton, and you want a public, not a parliamentary inquiry. Mr Hamilton has failed to give me a clear response as to whether these related matters relevant to the ministerial code, but out with the specific remit, are going to be considered. Sorry, let me start again. Mr Hamilton has failed to give me a clear response as to whether these related matters relevant to the ministerial code, but out with the narrow scope of the specific remit given by Sweeney, are going to be considered. However, in a letter on the 4th of December, he did indicate that he was inclined to view that such matters could be considered, but they probably won't, and they'll probably just try and cover it up, and will take into account arguments for the inclusion, for their inclusion. It is on that basis I make this submission. In doing so, I would note that it does not serve the public interest if the independent process of the examination of the ministerial code, which I which I introduced as First Minister, is predetermined or seen to be predetermined by the restrictive remit given by the Deputy First Minister, Mr. Sweeney of the SNP. So the SNP have already put brackets on it, and so that Nicola Sturgeon will not be found guilty of breaching the ministerial code, although she has breached the ministerial code. Refreshingly true, refreshing. Andrew Good. No, she hasn't. 100%. So here we go. I don't know what that means. What in relation is. Try and make your questions longer so I can actually get a statement or a sentence. A restricted investigation would not achieve its purpose or genuine independent determination and would undermine confidence in what has been a useful innovation in public accountability. This is not being publicly accountable. Only a public inquiry will make it publicly accountable. And the parliamentary inquiry is doomed to fail. I would accordingly urge Mr. Hamilton to embrace the independence of his role and express assurance given to the Scottish Parliament by the First Minister that he is free to expand the original remit drafted by the First Minister, Deputy First Minister, and to address each of the matters contained in the submission. Breaches of the ministerial code beyond the term. This is the good bit. This is the juicy bit. Give me hope for Scotland where there has been so little. Thanks, buddy. The people of Scotland are waking up. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so, guys. So this is the juicy bit. This is the politically juicy bit. Breaches of the ministerial code beyond the terms of the remit set for Mr. Hamilton by the Deputy First Minister. There are other aspects of the conduct of the First Minister which, in my submission, require scrutiny and determination in relation to the breaches of the ministerial code. Sexy. I was contacted by phone on or around the 9th of March 2018 and further and following week by Jeff Aberdeen, former Chief of Staff. The purpose of the contact was to tell me about a meeting he had held with the First Minister's Chief of Staff. It all ties back like a big spider's web to the Black Widow wee nippy. Liz Lloyd, who I brought up in my other things that she should be investigated at her request. I think it was Liz Lloyd who briefed the press prior to the allegations being made. Yes, I have woken a few. They're angry now. Laughing like good. They should be. Quite right. So here we go. Liz Lloyd. In the second of these meetings, she had informed him that she was aware of 2 complaints from allegedly civil servants that she knew, but we don't know because it's been the names have been redacted, concerning me under a new complaints procedure introduced to include former ministers. She named one of the complainers to him, who she said was one of my friends who is part of our orchestrated Vietnam group, allegedly. At that stage, I didn't know the identity of the other complainer. They were just making it up, allegedly. On receipt of the letter from the Permanent Secretary, first informing me of complaints on the 7th of March 2018, I had secured Levy and McRae as my solicitors and Duncan Hamilton Advocate and Ronnie Clines QC as my counsel. There's a plug for you guys. Hope I'm getting money here. Even at the early stage, we had identified that there were a range of serious deficiencies in the procedure, which Mr. Salmond then went on to take £500,000 to pay all this variety of legal entities of taxpayers' money because Nicola Sturgeon shouldn't have brought forward this is a case. Even at this stage, we have identified that there were a range of serious deficiencies in the procedure. There was no public or parliamentary record of it ever being adopted. In addition, it contained many aspects of both procedural unfairness, or orchestration we could call it, and substantive illegality. So he's saying it's illegal as well. There's been illegal things happening, and we have to have a public inquiry to find out if people need to go to jail. Let's non-violence anger. Let's be clear. Yes, quite raging. Ah, there was obviously there was an obvious and imminent question over the respect to which Scottish Government even had jurisdiction to consider the complaints. Oh my goodness, listen to that. This is very important, listen to this. There was an obvious and immediate question, and especially knowing that this should be brought forward, over the respect to which the Scottish Government, who orchestrated this, Nicola Sturgeon, even had jurisdiction to consider the complaints. It's gut wrenching what's happening in Scotland, yes. In relation to former ministers, in contrast to current ministers, it offered no opportunity for mediation. The complaint procedures of which I was familiar, fairness at work, was based on the legislative foundation of the ministerial code, in which the First Minister was the final decision maker. I wish to bring all of these matters to the attention of the First Minister. I did not know at that stage the degree of knowledge and involvement in the policy on the part of both the First Minister and her Chief of Staff. So I've not read this before, but I was able to work it all out without speaking to Alex Salmond, without speaking to anybody in the SNP. I was able to work it out because I'm that clever about politics, not that clever generally. Aye, that's without going to Govan Hill, a total rat infested shithole. Yes, yes, as President Trump would say. Mr. Arden, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, had been asked by Ms. Lloyd, all the lesbians, to be her contact with me, and they jointly arranged a meeting with the First Minister in the Scottish Parliament. Oh, it was in the Scottish Parliament, so it was official. So she's lied about that as well. On the 29th of March 2018. Oh, that's a sacking offence there. That's one ministerial code broken there. That's number one. This meeting was for the purpose of discussing the complaints and thereafter arranging a direct meeting between myself and the First Minister. Naughty, naughty Nicky. There was never the slightest doubt what the meeting was about. And obviously, Nicola Sturgeon's a lawyer, so I'm sure she's probably dealt with these sort of things before. Any suggestion by the First Minister to the Scottish Parliament, official report 8th of October 2020, that the meeting was fleeting and opportunistic is simply untrue. Nicola Sturgeon, we're nothing to see here, nothing to see here, we're totally transparent. Oh yes, nothing to see. It was agreed on the 29th of March 2018 at the meeting in the Scottish Parliament, attended by Mr. Arden and the First Minister, redacted, I don't know what's redacted there, that the meeting between myself and the First Minister would take place on the 2nd of April at her home near Glasgow. Oh, near Glasgow, is it? Oh, self-evidently, only the First Minister could issue that invitation to her private home. Very interesting. Come round to mine, Big Alex. In attendance at the meeting on the 2nd of April 2018 were Mr. Arden, Mr. Hamilton, Miss Lloyd and myself, Mr. Hamilton. Wonder what Mr. Hamilton that is. Wonder if that's Mr. Hamilton that's investigating this. That's a bit weird, isn't it? That's very strange. What Mr. Hamilton is that? It can't be the one that's investigating this after the actual trial's taking place, is it? The first meeting and I met privately. That's going to annoy me now. Met privately, and then there was a general discussion with all five of us. Oh, hi there. Somebody touched my knees recently. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, let's put them in jail. What about the Muslim rape gangs? Oh, in Glasgow and Glasgow. Oh, don't worry about them. We'll just ignore them. My purpose was to alert the First Minister to the illegality of the process, not being aware at that time of her involvement in it, and to seek an intervention from the First Minister to secure a mediation process to resolve the complaints. Stop touching my knee! That's really bad. I was well aware that under the Ministerial Code, the First Minister should have notified the civil servants of the discussion and believed that this would be the point at which she would make her views known. This is her breaking the Ministerial Code, and she should resign for that. She also has broken the Ministerial Code for bringing forward the prosecution as well of the case when she was advised not to. All this points, it's a cult meeting. It's a cult meeting. Oh dear. First Minister should notify the civil servants and believe that this would be pointed out at which she would make her views known. The First Minister assured us that she would make such an intervention at an appropriate stage. Oh! On the 23rd of April 2018, I phoned the First Minister by arrangement on the WhatsApp, not the Vietnam group, WhatsApp group, to say that a formal offer of mediation was being made via my solicitor to the Permanent Secretary that day. In the event, this offer was declined by the Permanent Secretary even before it was put to the complainers. Now, the Permanent Secretary, I think that was Liz Lloyd or Susan Ruddock, whoever it was anyway, they're also implicated in actually contacting the victims, which they shouldn't have done prior to the actual case of the complainers going to court. So they were already maybe orchestrating it. By allegedly the end of May, it was clear that the substantial arguments my legal team were making by the end of May, it was becoming clear that the substantial arguments my legal team were making in correspondence against the legality of the procedure, i.e. Alex won the trial against the procedure, were not having any impact on the Permanent Secretary, because Wee Nippy was controlling the Permanent Secretary to potentially intersectional Marxist lesbian feminists who wanted to destroy Alex Salmond and put him in jail. My legal team advised that it was impossible properly to defend myself against the complaints under such a flawed procedure. They advised that a petition for judicial review would have excellent prospects of success, unlike Nicola Sturgeon bringing the allegations against Alex Salmond, given the government were acting unlawfully. People need to go to jail if people are acting unlawfully. However, I was extremely reluctant to sue the government I once led, because it went downhill after you left, because Wee Nippy has taken over. I wanted to avoid the damage both to the Scottish Government and the SNP. This current Scottish Government's finished, and the SNP are going to take a major hit on the back of this, which would inevitably result. To avoid such a dramatic step, I resolved to let the First Minister see the draft petition for the judicial review. Well, that was you showing the wolf your little lamb. Allegedly. Allegedly. That's right, allegedly. Allegedly. So isn't it? Oh, here, Nicola, what do you think of a judicial review that you potentially set me up for orchestrating all these fake sexual advice? Wouldn't have been doing that. As a lawyer and as First Minister, I assumed that she would see the legal jeopardy into which the government was drifting. No, she didn't care. She was only interested in making sure you didn't come back into politics. That was her. You were getting torpedoed whether you go to jail or making any of these allegations stick to destroy your reputation. That was what she was interested. Her, Liz Lloyd. Where's on the list? Her, Liz Lloyd, Susan Ruddock, Judith McKinnon, Leslie Evans, Liz Lloyd, and more. And more. That's just a small segment. On the first allegedly sent a message which was opposed. Oh, sorry. I therefore sought a further meeting on the 1st of June 2018. The First Minister sent a message which was the opposite of the assurance she had given me on the 2nd, 2018. Yeah, she's not interested in giving you any assurances. She will lose the case. She's just interested in destroying you, putting you in jail, and destroying your reputation. That's how vicious and vindictive Ree Nippy is. Because she's done such a bad job over the last 7 years, she just wants to destroy you because you are much better than she was. And you are the only one with the political gravitas. Who's going to take over? Hum's the useless. Many of the LGBTQ community were about to join the Scottish Libertarian Party and go away from the SNP, and you had to bring them back. You had to tell Humza Useless to take parts out of the disgusting hate speech bill. Instead, that she had always said the intervention was not the right thing to do. That was both untrue and disturbing. On the 3rd of June 2018, I sent her a message on the implications for the government in losing a judicial review and pointing to her obligation under the Ministerial Code to ensure that her administration was acting lawfully, which it hasn't, and there has to be a public inquiry so that we can actually find out how unlawfully and who was acting unlawfully, and under the Scotland Act to ensure that their actions were compliant under the European Convention as well, which I don't think they'll have been either. The First Minister and I met in Aberdeen on the 7th of June 2018 when I asked her to look at the draft judicial review petition. Well, as a lawyer, she would have been a bit worried about that because she obviously knew that the legal advice that she had taken hadn't actually warranted bring forward these allegations, and she was actually just trying to frame you, Mr. Salmond. But she was still prepared to go down this route to get you, and that was it. The wheels were already set. She did briefly. Oof, I'll have a look at that. Yeah, we're going for you, Alex, and you're getting it. She did briefly, but made it clear she was now disinclined to make any intervention. Yeah, because she set you up, didn't she? She set you up. My desire to avoid damaging and expensive litigation remained. She wasn't interested. She's the government. She's using our money to actually prosecute you, not her money. My legal team thereafter offering arbitration as an alternative to put the matter before the court of session. Yeah, she's not interested in that. The proposal was designed to offer a quick and relatively inexpensive means of She's not interested in that. She wants to bankrupt you as well, so she wants to put as much pressure on you by having to do this first one, although your expenses were paid, that she then has to do a second one. She's truly is allegedly. This is worse than the last episode of Game of Thrones. Oh, my reading's okay. I hope you're not blaming me. Yeah, it's good though, isn't it? But you can see how obvious it is. You can see how obvious that by just reading it through, you can see how obvious the orchestration has been, allegedly. The proposal was designed to offer a quick and relatively inexpensive means of demonstrating the illegality of the procedure in a process which guaranteed the confidentiality of the complainers. It would also have demonstrated the illegality of the process in a forum which would be much less damaging to the Scottish Government than the subsequent public declaration of illegality. It's well past that. We need to have security in our democratic process and the people that are in it. And that we don't have it through this parliamentary scrutiny. We have to have it through a public inquiry. This is not acceptable. I would prepare at the time to engage, and we have to, wherever the chips fall, the chips will fall. And if that means putting ministers in jail, then that's what has to happen. I was prepared at that time to engage fully with the procedure in the event my legal advice was incorrect. I was prepared at the time to engage fully with the procedure in the event my legal advice was incorrect. In the event, of course, it was robust. I explained the advantages of such an approach to the First Minister in WhatsApp message on the 5th of July, where they're typing away in the WhatsApp messages in the Vietnam group, with the alleged victims and the civil servants and the special advisors, Crown Office, getting the police involved, the First Minister advising her husband, put pressure on London. Yeah. 26 redacted. I don't know what redacted says, isn't it? We just did the all redacted, we wouldn't know. We all would know it was redacted, wouldn't we, if it was all redacted? Sick of this redacted. On the 18th of July 2018, the First Minister phoned me at 13:05 to say the arbitration had been rejected and suggest that this was on the advice of the law officers. Now, I don't know who the law officers is. If it's the Crown Office and Lord James Wolfe, then this is actually the implications with Lord Advocate James Wolfe. Then he's implicated in this as well. Ha 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 ha. No, not you. No, not you. I don't know. You'll have to expand your comments, guys, so I can get in context. She urged me to submit a substantive rebuttal on the specific complaints against me, suggested that the general complaints already answered were of little consequence and would be dismissed, and then assured that my submission would be judged fairly. She told me I would receive a letter from the Permanent Secretary offering me further time to submit such a rebuttal, which duly arrived later that day. As it turned out, the rebuttal, once submitted, was given only cursory examination. Oh, here, yeah, we're already going after you, Alex. We're not interested by an investigations officer in the course of a single day, and she had already submitted her final report to the Permanent Secretary, who looks like she's in on this as well. I mean, it's right, it's a real conspiracy, this. My view is now that it was believed that my submission of a rebuttal would weaken the case for judicial review. My involvement in the rebutting the substance of the complaints being seen as a cure the procedural unfairness, and that First Minister's phone call on the 18th of July 2018 and the Permanent Secretary's letter on the same date suggest that it was in my interest to submit a substantive response was designed to achieve that. So basically, by him sending in a response, they could actually, the Permanent Secretary, Nicola Sturgeon, could actually have used that against him when they were actually, that's very fly, isn't it? Used against him when he goes to court against, with these 10 people reduced to 9, actually trying to set him up for the fake sexual allegation charges. How fly is that by the Permanent Secretary and the First Minister? Eh? Wow. in terms of the meeting with me, the only breaches of the Ministerial Code are the failure to inform civil servants timelessly of the nature of the meetings. In the terms of the meeting with me, the only breaches of the Ministerial Code are the failure to inform civil servants timelessly of the nature of the meetings. My view is the First Minister should have informed the Permanent Secretary of the legal risk they were running. No, she wasn't interested in the legal risk because she's already ignored the faculty of the law faculty dean advice not to actually bring forward this in the first place, and she's obviously not taking this on board. She's obviously pushing it as well, ensuring a proper examination of the legal position, and satisfied her that her government were acting lawfully. Well, they obviously weren't acting lawfully, because if they were acting lawfully, they wouldn't have brought the case in the first place. Further, which is in itself is a breach of the Ministerial Code. Further, once the judicial review had commenced, now the judicial review, there's two court cases here. There's the judicial review that happened first, and also the case with the 10 reducing to 9 complainers with 14 charges. So there's two different reviews. So this is the judicial review into the government's handling of the actual process that brought these complainers together. Of the legal advice from external counsel. The First Minister consulted with the council on the 13th of November that on balance of probability they would lose the judicial review and lose the accusations that were made by these 10 people. So they were going to lose both of them, but Nicola Sturgeon still brought them forward anyway, and to be found to have acted unlawfully. That on the balance of probability they would lose the judicial review and be found to have acted unlawfully. So they've acted unlawfully on both court proceedings. Despite the legal action was continued until early January 2019 and was only conceded after the government external counsel threatened to resign from, that's really bad, that's the government's legal counsel threatened to resign from the case which they considered to be unsustainable. So there was no case, and so Alex Salmond just got £500,000 of your taxpayers' money. Whose law? I don't know what you mean. Resigned from the case. This, on any reading, is contrary to section 2.30 of the Ministerial Code. So there's multiple breaches of this code, and this is why she'll have to resign. So that's two legal cases that she shouldn't have brought, but she brought anyway. And to the extent where her lawyer, her counsel, her legal counsel was going to resign because it shouldn't be brought forward. And she's a lawyer, and Nicola Sturgeon's a lawyer. The most seriously, Parliament has been repeatedly misled on a number of occasions by the nature of the meeting on the 2nd of April 2018. So that's another, lying to Parliament is another breach of the Ministerial Code. The former First Minister told the Parliament, see official report on the 8th, 10th and 17th of January 2019, that she first learned of the complaints against me when I had visited her on the 2nd of April 2018. That is untrue and is a breach of the Ministerial Code. The evidence from Mr. Aberdeen, that he personally discussed the existence of the complaints and summarised the substance of the complaints with the First Minister in a pre-arranged meeting in Parliament on the 29th of March 2018, arranged for that specific purpose, can't be reconciled with the position of the First Minister to Parliament. The fact that Mr. Aberdeen learned of these complaints in the early March 2018 from the Chief of Staff to the First Minister, who therefore arranged for the meeting between Mr. Aberdeen and the First Minister on the 29th of March to discuss them, is supported by sharing the information contemporaneously with myself, Kevin Pringle, and Duncan Hamilton, advocate. Well, maybe it was Duncan Hamilton, advocate, right? Okay, maybe that was the person that came with him. In her written submission to the committee, the First Minister has subsequently admitted to that meeting on the 29th of March 2018, claiming to have previously forgotten about it. Oh, forgotten? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I haven't got a clue. I'm a lawyer, in charge of the country, but conveniently, I have forgotten the meeting that could sink my premiership. Didn't Galloway say that there was a lot more to come in this case? Well, they're trying to put it down a black hole so that nobody actually finds out about it. That's why we have to call for a public inquiry into this. It can't be black hole. They're trying to use the parliamentary inquiry to actually suppress all the different aspects of this inquiry, because it obviously goes out like a spider's web. It's not just one person or two people, it's a group of people. The pre-arranged meeting in the Scottish Parliament on the 29th of March was forgotten. Oh, Nicholas Sturgeon doesn't remember. Don't know. I'm a lawyer. 5A hires. But I can't remember that meeting. How fortuitous. Because acknowledging it would have rendered ridiculous the claim made by the First Minister in Parliament that it had been believed that the meeting on the 2nd of April was on SNP party business. Official report on the 8th and 10th of January. Let's have the First Minister doing a polygraph test, shall we? That would be interesting. And thus held at a private residence. In reality, all participants in that meeting were fully aware of of what the meeting was about and why it had been arranged. The meeting took place with a shared understanding of the issues for discussion. The complaints made, and the Scottish Government procedure which had been launched. The First Minister claimed that it was First Minister claimed that it was ever thought to be about anything other than the complaints made against me is wholly false. The failure to account for the meeting on the 29th of March when making a statement in Parliament and thereafter failing to correct the false representation is a further breach of the Ministerial Code. I think I'm up to about 5 breaches of the Ministerial Code now, not just 1 or 2. It's about 5 now. Further, the repeated representation to the Parliament of the meeting on the 2nd of April 2018 as being a party meeting because it proceeded in ignorance of the complaints is false and manifestly untrue. Lying to Parliament. The meeting on the 2nd of April 2018 was arranged as direct consequence of the prior meeting about the complaints held in the Scottish Parliament on the 29th of March 2018. The First Minister additionally informed the Parliament official report 10th of January 2018 that I did not know how the Scottish Parliament was dealing with the complaint. I did not know how the Scottish Government intended to deal with the complaint, and I did not make any effort to find out how the Scottish Government were going to orchestrate the setting up of me by 9, potentially 10 people, not including the one down in London that Mr. Murrell has potentially perjured himself with. I didn't know how they were going to do that. Was dealing allegedly with the complaint or to intervene in how the Scottish Government was dealing with the complaint. I would contrast that position with the factual position at paragraph 20 and 27 above. The First Minister's position on this is simply untrue. She did initially offer to intervene. So she said, "Oh, I'll intervene, Alex, although I've orchestrated it. Don't worry, Alex, I've got your back here." free porn pics, porn gifs. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I would contrast that position with the First Minister's position on this is simply untrue. She did initially offer to intervene in the presence of all those at the First Minister. So she offered to intervene. So she's saying, "Oh, I was going to try and help you out, Alex, but I was trying to push you down the stairs. Oh, I tried to grab you. Boom. That's her into it. Oh, don't worry, I'll help you, Alex. Boom, down the stairs." At the First Minister's house on the 2nd of April 2018. What a slippy wee shit. Moreover, she did engage in the following the process of the complaint and indeed reported the status of the process to me personally. I also believe it should be investigated further in terms of the ministerial code whether the criminal leak of part of the content of the permanent secretary, Liz Lloyd. So Alex is potentially going to sue Liz Lloyd because she leaked it to the papers allegedly. Part of the overall strategy to smear Alex Salmond. So his name's been tarnished with 9 sexual accused or 10 sexual accusers, 14 different sexual accounts, where he's not been found out of any of them. And Liz Lloyd, who needs to be criminally investigated, could have been part of this as well. Whether the criminal leak or part of the content of the Permanent Secretary's decision report to the Daily Record was sourced from the First Minister's office, probably to Paul Hutchins, who is probably just a globalist mouthpiece. That's his job, is to actually destroy any opposition to the shilling for the globalists, including me Nippy. Don't forget the globalists go across the 5 parties that are represented in the Parliament. It's not one. They say that all these politicians are exactly the same because they're all following the globalist agenda, not the agenda to help you. We know from a statement made by the Daily Record editor that they received a document. I enclose the Appendix B, the summary of the ICO review of the complaint, which explains the criminal nature of the leak. Oh, so why is the police not investigated? I went down and spoke to the police about it, named names, and they refused to investigate and the police might be implicated allegedly. What an insult to the true victims of these horrendous crimes. What's an insult? You have to expand your sentences. What an insult to the true victims of these horrendous crimes. There wasn't any crimes, just so you know, because none of these were found guilty in a court of law. So there was no crimes to answer for. So when you go to court, so if I went to court and somebody accused me of something and I'm found not guilty, then that means there hasn't been a crime. It's only if you're found guilty has there been a crime. And to have 9 potential people who are all making, or 10 it was originally, one dropped out because they were putting pressure on them. The government officials were putting pressure on them. One dropped out. To have 9 that not one was actually convicted on just shows you who the actual victim was, I would think. But let's do polygraph tests. Let's find out. Let's get polygraph tests done. We'll find out if they're victims. If they're not victims, then they should go to jail. We know from the state. Let me go. Whether the criminal leak or part of the content of the Permanent Secretary's decision report to the Daily Record was sourced from the First Minister's office. The use of the allegations. The use of the allegations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We know from the statement made by the Daily Record's editor that they received the document. Craig Murray also identified Liz Lloyd as the person who actually leaked it as well. So and now he's up in perjury charges as well. So he's another victim of the Nicola Sturgeon cover-up as well. We know from a statement made by the Daily Record editor that they received a document. I enclose Appendix B, the summary of the ICO review of the complaint, which explains the criminal nature of the leak and identification of 23 possible staff sources. 23, that's a lot of civil servants that could have been involved in this. Of the leak given to the prosecutor has sympathy with the hypothesis that the leak came from an employee of the Scottish Government. Surprise, surprise. My reason is as follows. The leak did not come from me or anyone representing me. In fact, I sought interdict to prevent publication and damage to my reputation, which was obviously why it was leaked in the first place. The leak is very unlikely indeed to have come from either of the two complainers, because they would have wanted to stay anonymous because they were trying to get it to trial to actually destroy Alex Salmond's life. The Chief Constable currently refused to accept a copy of the report, although the police might have been implicated, when it was offered by Police Scotland on the 21st of 2018 by the Crown Agent. It cannot therefore have leaked from Police Scotland. I don't know what Police Scotland do anymore. Scottish Government officials have not leaked the fact of an investigation from January when it started. The only additional group of people to have received such a document or summary of such a document in the week prior to the publication in the Daily Record was the First Minister's office. All the webs, all the silk goes back to the First Minister, as indicated in the paragraph 4.8 and of the ICO prosecutor's report. In that office, the document would have been accessed by the First Minister, her special advisors, and I would be happy to offer further information on the summation. This is Right Honourable Alex Salmond, 31st December 2020, written by Alex Salmond, produced in The Spectator. And let's see if we got the journalist. Is there a journalist here? No, can't even credit anybody for this. Oh, no. Can't even credit anybody for this. Maybe a big fat Andy Neil. So, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I think there is plenty more to answer here. Plenty more. Nicola Sturgeon's husband could be up for perjury. Liz Lloyd could be up in court. There's plenty more scope for things going to be happening here. How you analysing the inquiry report but can't analyse the YouTube comment correctly? That's very good. I don't know. We've all got our limitations. I'm just very good at politics. The use of allegations. I get all my political commentary from a man who's not even closed his porn. All right, no, porn. Porn. I don't even know what that was. I was probably clicking on something else. Probably one of the other things. I get all my political commentary from a man who's not even closed his porn tab before starting the live stream. Dirty. I was probably clicking on other things and the porn thing came up. They are all sitting back with their popcorn, letting the crap happen. What they're trying to do is put things down a black hole and prevent things coming out. Now you've got to understand they're now trying to cover up from you guys. This is now to be covered up, and that's it. So that it's all to be covered up. That is the prevention is for you to actually realise that. Prevention is for you to realise what the underlying things that have actually happened are. They are sitting back with their popcorn, letting the crap happen. Stick the parish Zoom meeting on, pal. Funniest thing you've ever seen. Parish Zoom. It's on YouTube.
When do we plan to start?
I think we could start any moment, Chairman. I think it's perhaps helpful just to go through the same things as we went through before, which is just to encourage people to switch off their microphones, because it does reduce the background.
Yeah, on that.
Not Bing, which tells us that somebody else wants to come in. So I'll continue to admit people if you'd like to start the meeting, Chairman.
Can we be assured that we won't be thrown out of the meeting like we were last time?
As long as we have reasonable behaviour from everyone, no one would be excluded from the meeting.
I was thrown out of the meeting. So was Councillor Burton, so was Councillor Brewerton.
As a point of order, Chairman, could we start them?
Okay.
Chair.
Okay. Okay.
Chair.
We haven't started the meeting yet. Do you want to speak anyway?
Yes, I'd like to ask a point of order.
I'm in.
We're not in a meeting, so points of order are not.
When's it starting yet? No?
Points of order apply during the debates. And I want to ask Jackie, was it you who quoted a point of order?
Yes, it was indeed.
Are you here as the proper officer?
I am here offering support to Handforth Parish Council in the
I'll let that go. That's quite a funny way to actually end quite a serious bit of chat there, guys. Guys, hope you enjoyed that. I thought that was quite interesting. Let's hope you did as well. Some interesting stuff. Get us on Twitter while it's still lasting. There's Humza Useless. Absolutely racist. Oh, terrible person. What a disappointment. He's been in the Scottish Parliament, isn't he? Anyway, guys, that was quite funny. Quite funny. I quite like that. So you should go and watch it yourselves. That looks quite interesting. Right, guys, I love my baby gorillas. Hope you had a good time watching.